Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Veterans Today Radio News Reports. I'm your host, Stu Webb. It's Monday, January the 12th, 2015. And I have a very special guest, my first hour here, Director of Veterans Today and Senior Editor, Gordon Duff. Jim Dean will be joining us later, and Dr. Preston James in the second hour. And Gordon, you have one heck of a lot of information up here on on Veterans Today. White House to Israel and France. Screw you. BCC invents story of White House apology. Obama forbids all U.S. backing of Paris humiliation march. You've also got the layout on Dick Cheney and others involved in 9/11. The things that have been coming out, this false flag in Paris, I'm going to let you run with it.
Well, there's, I'm going to actually close my door here. I'm in my, there. I'm in a large old house here, and I am relegated to what used to be the servants' quarters when people had the money to have servants. And they don't pretty much have that anymore, or you own so much stuff that you don't want them around the house anyway. But there's one probably important thing that we get out of the way, and that is the article on France. Now, currently we have so many things breaking at the same time that if you try following all of them, they drown each other out. Now, as with the OJ trial, this thing in France, remember the OJ thing, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. Well, in France, I'm going to call it a Syria there. In France, there are lots of claims that there's a false flag attack, that this thing wasn't real, that it didn't really happen the way it was said. And one of the episodes involved two men jumping out of a car with AK-47s and executing a police officer. And we're going to only talk about that single incident, nothing else. Although we have evidence that there was an attack on a market and that 4 Mossad agents were there or not. I wasn't there. I didn't see it. My sources in France say that happened. We're not going to talk about it because we can't prove it. We can't take it to a court. We don't know for sure. What did happen, however, is early on, this attack, this execution of a police officer that Live Leak carried. And I'm going to direct you to veteranstoday.com and the article, Fiasco France, Lie to Me Once. And only read this article. Keep it separate from anything else because all you need is one piece of proof. If they made this up, they made up 9/11. They made up the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. But wait a minute, we already knew that. They rigged presidential elections. We already knew that. We kind of knew it was all sort of rigged. But this is one where it's as though it were November 22nd, 1963. Kennedy was just shot, and they claimed Lee Harvey Oswald was doing it, and he was standing on the pitcher's mound at Yankee Stadium at the time. It's that kind of obvious. Here's how we know what we did. A video was supplied from liveleak.com, and you can go to live, and most of us have seen this, or most of us who obsess on this kind of stuff, and I don't expect everyone to do this. The problem with the video shows two people getting out of cars, firing their rifles toward a police officer who falls to the sidewalk, and then one of them walks up, runs up, and while running, holds the rifle at the police officer's head and pulls the trigger. Now, we don't really see anything happen on this video, not very clearly. It doesn't make sense. Something's clearly wrong, and people all over the world have been taking this video apart, so it's just not me. I'm a ballistics expert. I work in weapons. I've been a cop that's worked on and as a private detective, I've worked on murder cases before. I have a pretty good idea how these things work. Here's what I'm advocating. Take the article I have, and we're going to go through this together. show it to any professional. And by professional, show it to a criminal lawyer, show my analysis and the videos, all of it. Any cop, any military intelligence expert, any friend that's an FBI agent, a judge, prosecutor, anyone who has pretty strong judgment on these things, or anyone that has a background in physics or background simply in video, or anyone who can understand my math, which part of this is math. We'll explain what we did. We took the video, we took the largest, best copy we could, we ran it through video software at ultra slow motion, 1/16th speed. We ran the audio underneath it, and the audio we ran as a track, and you see those, little graphs where the audio goes up and down with the sound. We ran this across using just the mouse, grabbing it, like you're running a little movie on your computer. We pull it across to where the shot is heard by the camera. Now, the camera is probably a very high-end camera phone or a pretty good quality video camera, and it's about 100 feet away in the first floor of a building. And in France, the first floor is really the second floor. And there are a lot of weird things about France. That's just one of them, but it's the second floor, about 100 feet away. Because we know that sound moves slower than light, we knew when the camera heard the sound that 100 feet away, the sound happened at a different time. So we took that frame, blew that frame up, and we ran it through thermal enhancement. And it revealed two white clouds at the and this is at the time the sound was heard. Now, here's a reading from the article here. The photo represents the first acoustic signature at the speed of sound, 1,126 feet per second, received approximately 100 feet away. By that time, the bullet, or blank, and we're saying it was a blank, hot gases moving it up to 2,500 feet per second have pushed a cloud of dust under the still elevated victim with the hands raised. What we show is that after this round is supposedly fired into his head, we can prove this because we've got the debris from the blank is right there in the picture to be seen. This guy's still sitting up with his hands up. He didn't fall till later, but pretty much everyone who saw this video noticed it. We just proved it, but everybody saw it. They just couldn't prove it. The sound took 0.088 seconds to reach the camera, and that's based on the speed of sound at 100 feet. An AK round traveling at 2,460 feet per second, traveling the 3 feet from the muzzle to the critter's head, would have impacted in 0.0012 seconds. Now, based on the differential between light speed and the speed of sound, the victim impact would have been visible 0.0868 seconds into the frame. By this time, the victim would have been obliterated into a pink mist. At the time seen in the frame, the bullet would have traveled, and this is by the differential between light speed and the speed of sound, 213 feet, unless its path was altered. Now you're shooting straight into the ground. As noted above, during the first 0.0012 seconds, it would have obliterated the head of our very alive and very well at the time police officer. Now, we put up a number of videos showing how AK-47s go through ballistic gel. You shoot a body with one. Do not shoot yourself with a gun to show how they work. But they'll move you around quite a bit. Fired at a human head, it would be entirely obliterated. There would be nothing left. Fired into concrete, they take huge chunks, fist-sized chunks out of concrete. And we have the demonstration videos here for anyone to see. What we have clearly, however, we have a photograph in pretty good resolution showing the dead cop alive, his head up, his arms in the air, well after the bullet is fired, And after the dust clouds from the gases and wadding from the blank having hit the sidewalk and pulled up concrete dust. We have it absolutely. Now, we could talk about 100 other things, and we have so much more information, tons and tons of it. We can talk about this all day, except this is proof, and this is the kind of proof that will stand up in any court. One single piece of proof, how little this is. If this one thing didn't happen, then none of it happened. Now it gets worse. As you watch the video, and we have the link to the video on the site, you'll see the terrorists, or whoever they are, run around, get back into the car. One of them had lost their shoe, by the way. I can sort of understand that. And you can see the would-be victim there. There isn't a single drop of blood on the sidewalk. Lower down, we have the video of the same site taken by Sky TV. There it shows a 150 square foot, that's 10 by 15, size of a moderate sized room, blood stain on the sidewalk. After this guy was shot, there wasn't a drop of blood. After he was shot in the head at point blank range, he was still sitting up, mind you. I mean, that's even worse. Now, we have some questions here. If this guy's really dead, and we know he was alive and well when the would-be terrorist drove away, there's only one other person we know was alive at the scene. That's the person who took the picture. And we know he stopped filming. Where did he go then? Now, if the cop is dead, and there is, and it looks like blood on the sidewalk, the first thing I would ask, I would hunt up the person who did the video and ask him, well, when you stopped the video, what did you do? And then I would say, did you pick up a pistol, run downstairs, and shoot the police officer 4 or 5 times, and then leave? Did you have friends with you? Because during this attack in extremely busy Paris in the middle of the day, no other cars come by. So did you have people waiting at the ends of the sidewalk? Was this an entire team? Were people blocking pedestrians? Were they in police uniforms? Were they dressed as Israeli security officers? Who were they? Blocking the street off, because the street was clearly blocked off while this was staged. That police officer was still clearly, we can prove he was alive. Absolutely prove. No question at all. And we're not the only one who picked this up. Other people have, and I encourage all of you, go here, download the video, do whatever you do. Work it out yourself. If you can't work it out, and if you're video guys, do the same thing we did. The exact same thing. All of you do it. Everyone do it. Stu.
Yes.
I was going to talk here.
I got to admit, it's incredible the stuff that you come up with. Of course, you have the capability of doing this, and you're an intelligence officer. You can do this, and you have the, like I say, you have the laboratory. You have everything to do it with.
Well,
and,
we worked with Beretsky for years, among other things, debunking UFO videos. So we have all the video enhancement software that we used on UFO videos. Some, by the way, we never debunked, and that's a worry for all of us. If you're worried about the anal probe and the brain-sucking, shape-shifting reptilians that we hear about, some of those videos don't come apart as easy as others. But going after this was shooting fish in a barrel, and other people are doing the same. I don't want credit for inventing this, because it's obvious to me that the White House figured this out immediately themselves, because when 40 national leaders showed up in Paris, nobody, not only from the Obama administration didn't show up, but none of the Republicans from Congress went either. No Americans went, other than the U.S. ambassador to France, and that's a goof to begin with. No one showed up. Nobody from the U.S. A couple of reasons. No one wanted to be seen walking down the street with Netanyahu and Abbas, his pet monkey, and Hollande, his other pet monkey, and Merkel, we don't even know whose pet monkey she is. Pet pig. Ferkel is what the Germans call her, which is is a pig. The Stasi queen.
She looks like.
But the BBC ran an article saying that the U.S. apologized for sending someone. We put up an article showing what the BBC wrote, the real statements made by U.S. officials, all of whom said they had to wash their hair, the dog ate their homework, we had other things to do. Nobody went. And I mean, John McCain didn't go. Nobody went. No one at all. No one would go because they screwed this one up. This is they call it screwing the pooch. This is whatever you might, and if you're a skeptic, and this is to skeptics out here. If you're a skeptic, do this yourself, and you can do this. The timing is so far off on this bullet that you can actually use Windows Live Movie Maker and Picasa, free software from we found you can even do this with free software from Google, plus the free software from Microsoft, and I guess there's an equivalent thing for Apple. But download even the low resolution. Download that, run it, and you'll have to stop and go. But you will clearly see bullet fired, the guy is still up, the clouds come past. Now you'll see my version is enhanced because I have software you don't have. You'll see some of this. Mine will look like you wish yours looked, but yours will be recognizable also. But do it yourself. Everyone do it. Prove to yourself that they've been lying to you all along. Now we've got a couple of other things we've put up that are fun, and there have been a wealth of things at VT. And it's only because sources have come through, and I will outline the articles for those. And I'd like you to go there. I'd like you to take a look at it and read the articles, analyze them as carefully as possible, and find what they mean to you. We've tried to make them as interesting as we can because although the holidays are over, it's no time to be depressed or suffering or whatever. But the key articles we're looking at would be Fiasco France in War Zone. Then behind this is Mapping 9/11, the Fort Lee Mystery. And this article came out, and I can't apologize for the world being an imperfect place. We received additional information over the past couple of weeks about a few things. One, Stu brought up about Vice President Cheney. We had found that Al-Qaeda Queen, Dr. Afia Siddiqui, and we've talked about this in other shows, so I won't wear this down, was actually working for the CIA as an assistant to Valerie Plame. She was working in Africa there to prove that Saddam either was or wasn't buying uranium yellow cake from the country of Niger and importing it. Now, there was a story that came out to the White House saying that, and the Bush administration was going to attack Iraq over this information. Now, Siddiqui and Plame and others were involved in an investigation trying to prevent the war. And in doing so, they found that the information President Bush used, sorry about that, came from a source with an Italian intelligence that had fabricated it. They had found that the mines that had supposedly mined this material and the shipping companies that sent it never existed. This material never existed. It was never purchased, never shipped to Iraq. It never happened. What was very shocking was after the reports were issued, totally debunking this phony intelligence that there was never any yellow cake, and that's now commonly admitted as known by everyone. It never existed. That the White House said the story was true, knowing it wasn't true, and the CIA went crazy. And from that point, Vice President Cheney decided that he would silence the CIA by ordering people to expose Valerie Plame's identity and then naming her assistant, Afia Siddiqui, as part of Al-Qaeda and going after her. Now, yesterday we did a search of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and Afia Siddiqui is in Carswell Medical Facility in northern Texas outside Fort Worth. She will be available for parole in 2087, and it says, according to her prison records, that she was convicted of trying to kill 4 American FBI and military personnel after being arrested in a police station in Afghanistan. Now, we know for a fact that she fled North Africa after Cheney named her part of Al-Qaeda, and she was a CIA agent. She fled to Pakistan. There she was kidnapped by the son of former Pakistani President Musharraf, who sold her to a private company tied to Blackwater for $55,000. She was taken to Bagram Air Force Base, where she was tortured for 5 years. Her children were with her, were killed. Her children were there. She's in a hospital facility now because she's crippled, confined to a wheelchair. At the time she was involved in this arrest and assault, she'd already been in custody for 5 years, had been raped repeatedly, was suffering from brain damage, had been beaten continually, waterboarded, sexually assaulted with every kind of device imaginable for 5 years, because the information she had didn't just say that Cheney was involved in falsifying information to take the U.S. to war, but they found that Cheney was working directly with Israeli and Russian arms dealer Victor Bout, B-O-U-T, who is also rotting away in an American prison for ever and ever and ever in total silence somewhere, as are so many other people. And that Victor Bout had been involved in stealing nuclear weapons from the Pantex facility in Amarillo, Texas, and they had been sold on the open market to Saudi Arabia, to Brazil, to South Korea, to Taiwan, that more than a few of these weapons were given to Israel to replenish their nuclear arsenal after the meltdown and destruction of the Dimona facility, and that the nuclear weapons that were used at the World Trade Center came from this stockpile. The uranium was originally processed. Uranium plutonium was originally processed at the Hanford facility in Washington, and that the nuclear weapons used on the World Trade Center were stolen and sold by Dick Cheney and Victor Bout. That's what Afia Siddiqui and Valerie Plame found out. Valerie Plame was outed, silenced, and then they made a very expensive movie about her that no one ever saw, that never went through a full release. And she's been silent since. This has been, and Afia, of course, is locked up. Victor Bout is locked up. Dmitry Kolosov is locked up. Everyone who can testify about Cheney is locked up. Everyone.
Now, isn't it the way that they usually pay somebody off for their silence, especially after what she went through, was to make a movie, and then she gets the money that the movie's never published, correct?
That's right. Its entire net was £200,000. The movie cost $22 million to make. It made $400,000, which I think is a loss.
Big loss.
There was a police officer on 9/11. There were Israeli teams arrested all over New York and New Jersey. Now we have an article on VT, and I will head back to that one and tell you. And this one you should read as well. And this is a fun read. We made this as interesting as possible, called "Mapping 9/11: The Fort Lee Mystery." And this one I worked on with Jim Dean for about 2 days. This is written by me with Jeff Smith, who was an investigator with Able Danger and the International Atomic Energy Agency. And in the photo, you will see the FBI safe house and office facility in Fort Lee involved in the 9/11 investigation. And Jeff was one of the team leaders at this house, and we show where it is on the map. Now, we give some of the history of Fort Lee. Fort Lee is a town in the New Jersey Palisades, right at the end of the George Washington Bridge. And one of the key attacks as part of 9/11 was an attempt to blow up the George Washington Bridge. And Stu would have to play the video. I'm not sure I can do that and have it picked up on the...
if I do, it'd probably knock us off the air at this point.
Yeah, it does that with me also.
Yes.
But if you go to the site, I have the police radio call describing the explosion of one truck on the bridge on 9/11, and the report from both CNN and CBS that it's Deborah Faverick on CNN and Dan Rather on CBS who report the attacks. And these videos that you will see from CNN and CBS no longer exist on this planet, so you'll want to catch those. Below this on the article, you will see the sites where the radio jammers that jammed the first responder radios in New York were placed in Fort Lee on top of 3 high-rises. These 3 high-rises, among the residents in here, are the people who run an organization called GENSA. I don't know, Stu, have you ever heard of GENSA?
Yes, it's should we say another, like AIPAC, it's Israeli Mossad, it's matter of fact, I think if we look back at it, my records indicate Larry Mizell, bank bailout scams, or AIPAC director, is a director.
Yes, Larry Mizell is the director of GENSA, and GENSA controls, these are the Fort Lee co-op, and let's see, I'm trying to think of the name of the association here. I have this written out, but it's a apartment co-op. These are 3 huge, really wonderful buildings, by the way. They look, other than the fact they're full of spies and saboteurs, they're nice buildings, and they have a great view of the bridge. And apparently the residents, some of the residents of these buildings, aided by Mossad teams living 4 blocks away and Mohammed Atta living 2 blocks away, being watched by the FBI from an office building across the freeway from Mohammed Atta. And the Israeli, these were the dancing Israelis, and other teams were in it's a very nice home on a street a little ways away. But we have all this on the map. So go to the article and you can look at this. You can see where the cable room was set, how they planned to take down the bridge by putting a huge amount of explosives in the cable room. And I went over this today with Jim Hankey, Colonel Jim Hankey, one of our editors, and what it would take to cut these cables and to drop the George Washington Bridge. And it would be many, many tons of explosives. So on 9/11, they were going to blow the cables and then break the roadway with the truck. Well, the truck bomb, according to the police video we have, which has their radio call on it, they say that this went off. Now, there were several teams arrested. One of the police sergeants that was involved in one of the arrests was Steve DiCarlo, a police sergeant who stopped a truck with 5 Israelis that was heading toward the George Washington Bridge. And he had them sent to the Meadowlands Correctional Facility, where they were later released. But they refused to get out of the car, and he was warned that they were involved in a criminal activity. Now, Steve hasn't been heard from for a long time, but Steve is now producing music out for a company named by a guy named Schwitzer. He's working in Nashville now. So he left the police, got quiet, no longer knows about 9/11, but has a recording career. I think they should have given him a movie, but there are enough records from him around. We are asking for the other police involved. What we have available on the site, however, is a specific map showing the homes of the Israeli art students that planned 9/11, worked on the planning of 9/11. The FBI surveillance house that is across the street and down 2 houses. And I have photographs of the houses specifically. I have a map showing where they're located. And if you take the high-rise buildings where the jammers were, where the bomb was laid right off Henry Hudson Drive at the base of the George Washington Bridge, this huge bomb, the Able Danger secret headquarters in an office building right off 505, the Port Authority Dispatch, and Mohammed Atta's house. They're all so close together. These guys had to be getting their coffee in the same line. But you could go from all of these facilities in Fort Lee from one to the other in less than 5 minutes, just a few hundred yards. On the article, Veterans Today has published a series of articles through 2014 outlining discoveries that back the use of nuclear weapons in 9/11, but also issues of what we'll call disclosure. And those articles we have, for the first time, and by popular demand, we have made them easily available on this story. So you'll want to copy this list and the links, because there are some fascinating articles here in the process.
Now, at the bottom of that story, you have the links to your other 911 series of reports, correct?
We have 37 articles listed that many people like Ken O'Keefe says he could never find. And I want to apologize to Ken for not making them easily findable. So we listed all 37 articles, and we've sent him the link, and when he gets around to it, he can catch up on these, because I know he's a busy guy. We also take a little look at who runs organized crime in Fort Lee, and so we list some of the recent federal indictments of 30 or 40, most of whom are Israeli Americans, are arrested for gambling and money laundering in Fort Lee. So Fort Lee is one of the centers of organized crime, but it was since the 1930s when Mayor LaGuardia closed down much of the organized crime in New York. It moved to Fort Lee. There were some great nightclubs there. The Riviera was there, which is one of the most famous nightclubs in the country. That and the Copa were the top places on the East Coast. Sinatra played there, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. Everybody played the Riviera, and it was right there at the base of the George Washington Bridge. A lot of history, and I didn't know enough about Fort Lee. Interesting place, and I wasn't aware until the Able Danger people informed me that it was where 9/11 was staged from, Fort Lee. All of the explosive, the teams, the weapons were all moved from there. Everything was stored there. The article is, and one of the key problems we have is making these things readable, enjoyable for people, because after all these years and feeling powerless at what a government does to you, if I publish something else, and it's taking me years to get some of this information, and it's important information, but if it just beats you to death over and over getting it, I mean, I'm not doing anybody any good, because we sure as hell don't have a government that cares about any of this. There's little question about that. But we're getting this out here, and at least you can know that somebody cares. that our level of competence, our level of penetrating these organizations has gone up significantly, that we are way beyond any of the law enforcement groups, way beyond, that we're working with quality information. We're not connecting dots or working with emails. We're working directly with the investigators from the Department of Justice, the FBI, and IAEA, the Able Danger teams. These people have come forward. They're working with us directly, and we aren't being obscure. We're showing you the houses where people ran the surveillance teams, where the perpetrators lived. We're laying it all out. We're showing you where everything was done exactly. Now, we're going to continue getting more details, more information. We've been doing it for some time, and you have the 37 articles that we worked on between May and November doing the same thing. And if you want to put a story together, and that story is still coming together, but as we watch what happened in Paris, it's not just the stories coming together, but they're continuing to do it to us. And this is the issue here. Toward that end, I don't know if we can all get together and thank President Obama or other members of our government for telling the French and Israelis that we're not going to take part in their, 3 million French lined up in the streets and marched with Netanyahu at the front, crying about, well, and if people were killed or not. First of all, the people at this magazine, Charlie, whatever it is, this is a piece of crap, totally. Oh my God. And these people are, I've lived in Paris. We in VT keeps a bureau there run by Jane Rosenstein, and longtime friends Didier Lambert and our Ukrainians were very active in French news circles, more than anyone would guess. We have a strong presence there. We attend everything, and in France, we're considered fairly mainstream press, but we're at all functions. We're very visible. We're very visible in the French press community, really much more than in the U.S. And France is a weird place. I like the French people. The French people have millions and millions of Muslims there. They don't all like them. I will remind the French people, however, when World War I came, World War II, and then the war in Indochina, which ended with the unpleasantness at Dien Bien Phu, over 100,000 Muslims had died defending France, or the banksters, or whatever France was doing, because they really weren't ever fighting for France at all. Let's get that straight. When Smedley Butler said war was a racket, people just don't quite understand. He meant all war is a racket, not this war or this war or that war. Or this war was good, that war was good. Bull. It's all a racket. If you've been in a war, and I certainly have, and you think it was a good war against a good enemy, and the one that we're doing now isn't, wake up and smell the roses here. If you don't think you're continually being taken, you're not paying attention. If you think you're an exception, part of what we deal with here, part of what I deal with personally, I know what I know because I know I've been taken. And I don't assume that I'm entirely over being taken right now. You don't know how deep this goes, but there is nothing you can believe. What we're handing you today, we've got one piece of video, one shooting, one execution of a police officer that was utterly staged. We can prove it. We can prove it in any court of law. And not only we can prove it, we're saying that you can prove it, and we're inviting you. We've got the links necessary. We can show you. We've given you the math. I've shown you the math. And I expect about 2/3 of you are better at some of this stuff than I am. And if you can't prove this, those of you who can, make an attempt. It'll be fun. And then realize, if you've seen this, and then you know why no leaders from the U.S. went to France, then figure out what it means. At the bottom of, and we're going back to the main page here at VT. I wish we had TV here. I'd be doing this. I would be doing this for you here.
Now, soon to come.
Soon to come. We have a new article. Something happened in Paris. Why didn't someone tell me? White House to Israel and France. Screw you. And in this article, I'll tell you what I've done. And sometimes do stuff that, if you can't do stuff that you shouldn't do, you shouldn't even be around. I mean, what the heck? You know, we're here to have fun. At the bottom of the article, I published a private intel report that covers a number of things that are more than classified. And I left pretty much all of it there. It was in French, so it's roughly translated. I did some corrections, but it won't be perfect. I tried to translate it as well as I could anyway. But it would from the French, and it will explain to you to varying degrees what is going on, as best we can. But it's at the end of the article, and I'm suggesting that you, if you have an interest in intel stuff and the patience to read this kind of thing, go down to the end of the article and read this, and you'll see what it's like to get raw intelligence, raw high-quality intelligence, not conjecture, from an intelligence officer, not from some guy on the internet. And this is what we're making available at VT as often as we can. Information that the Defense Intelligence Agency can't get, and poor Hanky will take some of this stuff over there to them, and they just, well, they have a very difficult time because they can't get this kind of information, and we publish it, and it makes them feel like real idiots, because they're real idiots, frankly. And I don't care if they hear that or not, because they are. They're useless. Our intelligence organizations are useless. For those of you out there, the other things I might say, I've been joking about disbanding the CIA, and Stu is threatening to have me elected president. And
I'm not threatening to elect you president. Everybody in the country wants you as president, Gordon.
I'm just telling you that I look on it as a nightmare. Personally, the whole thing, not only does it make me uncomfortable, it makes me uncomfortable that people are offering me huge amounts of money now. It's starting to come in to run for president, that I would have to form a committee. I need someone responsible to do that. And the other one is, I don't in any way want to be president. I don't need the job. I don't need the money. I don't need any of it.
But we need Gordon Duff to go in and do what you.
Oh, I will tell you. I would have a certain amount of pleasure. There's this Huey Long thing that goes on in me, by the way. Although I'm not politically aligned with Huey Long entirely here, a little bit of it, the populism or whatever. I still have my sense of humor. But anyone who thinks I won't have thousands of criminals immediately arrested, and that will include corrupt federal judges, prosecutors, law enforcement officials across the U.S., legislators, state governors will be in detention in 24 hours. And I have the people to do it right now. We absolutely have them. We will deputize members of the U.S. military from the elite services, and we will send them out, and we will gather people up. And there's no question about that at all. And we will give them all fair trials. And in the end, the hope will be that we will have a country, and that other countries will do the same. France, Canada, Australia, Britain, Germany, that they will do the same. Israel, others. I mean, we've encouraged Syria and Iran and Iraq to do this. We encourage Libya. We encourage others to do this. Well, isn't it time that came home? In this case, I am not one to overthrow the government, but if you elect me president, I have a belief of what president authority is because I have some familiarity with the Constitution. And there are people operating well outside the Constitution. They think that this government we have here is constitutional. It is not.
They think it's organized crime at its best.
It is what we have for a government here is a monstrosity. This country will be turned over to the people of the United States by somebody, and I'm a political conservative. Corporations will make money like they never have. They'll make a huge amount of money. Lee Wanta will get his money, which I will take half of to pay the national debt, and then Lee and I will work together to rebuild everything in this country. He's a wonderful guy. The money really exists.
By the way, I'm getting all these messages from talk show hosts right here on Revolution Radio. Yippee-ki-yay, Gordon's running for president. Yes, I'm voting for him. I hope him get elected.
We have a lot of talented people in this country, and some are in government. A lot are professionals within government and the military who, if given the chance, would do the right thing. We have police departments around the U.S., and toward that end, the government will take a look at every law enforcement officer in the United States, and we will offer them. See, this is an interesting point. A lot of you don't think about this, but we have an awful lot of people locked up in this country. And locking people up in prison, now you've been in prison, and how unsafe is it in prison, Stu?
Well, I know that if it wasn't for someone that was in there, that was actually sitting in there to do a sting operation on some of the Iran-Contra money launderers in Denver, I may have been dead because he tipped the guard off that they had 3 gang members from the Crips and the Bloods that were offered $40,000 apiece to do me. They were going to shaft me with a razor blade type deal. And all of a sudden, I'm getting thrown in handcuffs and dragged to another unit. That's how safe it is in jail.
Well, there's an issue here.
Shafted them back, and I would have been up on murder charges, and I would have got a few of them.
Oh yeah. I know one guy. I won't mention his name. Leonard Madison, who was a Marine with the 5th Marines, was convicted in 1971 after serving in Vietnam. And Leonard's a goof. He broke into somebody's house, and he picked up a 3 to 5 sentence, and died of old age in prison. By having his sentence extended for varying infractions, drug deals in prison, escapes, assaults, or whatever. Well, Leonard was a good friend. He's a criminal, mind you. If you're out there, Leonard is not going to kick you to death on the sidewalk. He was, not that kind of, bad person, but I wouldn't put anything down around him and figured it'd be there 5 minutes later, mind you. But I liked him anyway. Or Lance Corporal Daniel Staggs, killed by a serial killer in 1982 in Jackson Prison. Good friend. Silver Star winner, Marine sniper. White supremacist, crazy guy. Or, I'll give you another one, Andrew Carter, sentenced to prison in Michigan in 1969 for the murder of an insurance executive. Called himself Andre Love Carter, Andrew Carter, very, very good friend. Andrew was a political inmate or corrections client or whatever with a lot of power within the prison system, but ended up dying in prison. And dying of prison at old age is 50, not 80. It's 50. That's as far as you live on poisoned food and stench and filth and no medical care. We love locking people up. We love passing laws. We love creating a country where people are encouraged to turn to crime to live. We're in a country where the biggest criminals run the country and then preach about putting everybody else in jail. So yeah, we're worried about people in prison. We're worried about our kids. I'm worried about people working for minimum wage, and anybody that doesn't like the idea of me making the minimum wage $15 and us paying enough to make sure that people have. If you can't pay $15 for a job, then it's not a job. It doesn't exist. Well, what about the kids? Yeah, right. What we have are tens of millions of working Americans out there for $7 and $8 an hour. And this excuse about a few high school students wanting to make their cigarette money, and that's why we have to starve the rest of this country to death. You know, if you ever had a reason to be afraid, talking like that around me would be a reason to be afraid, because I'd worry about me abusing presidential power. I don't know. I just do it because, you know, I've got post-traumatic stress. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I've got a bad temper, really bad temper.
And Gordon, that's not like abusing presidential power.
Oh,
actually, it's you would be doing your job.
Well, you know, the idea of people who love destroying other people out of greed and criminality, it bothers me. I don't know. It just does. Something about it is wrong. On the other hand, people making lots of money, working hard, investing, taking risks, sometimes pushing the envelope on stuff. I'm not here to shut down Wall Street or to end people's ability to, you know, to buy marijuana if they want to, or to own an assault weapon, or have sex, or to gamble. You know, I'm not horribly against those things. What we're not going to have is we're not going to have any heroin in this country. We're not going to have meth in this country. We're not going to have a lot of things like that in this country. And that, do what one can, run a police state to eliminate those things. Yeah, they're destroying this country. They're killing everyone here, and we're going to stop that for sure.
Hold on, Gordon. Stay with us for a moment. Back. And we're back, folks. This is January the 12th, 2015. It's Monday, and this is the Veterans Today Radio News Reports. I'm your host, Webb, and my special guest is Gordon Duff. And we also have Gordon, Jim Dean, the managing editor of Veterans Today, on with us. And Gordon, would you finish up where you left off?
Well, I'm just noticing I'm in my my dashboard, editorial dashboard on VT, and whatever it is, we've got 104,000 people on the website right now at Eastern Standard Time, 7:03 p.m. So that's a fair number of people. It's not that much more than it normally is. It's up about 20%. So we got 20,000 people out here listening that just, you know, clicked over to the site in the last half hour or so. I'm going to turn this over to Jim very quickly. Going to say that he's going to go through articles here that, and I'm calling it truth porn as opposed to fear porn. We're getting good information out to the extent that we're managing real sources within the military and intelligence community. I have the wherewithal, I think, easily to, and not that I'm 100% on this, but to weed through baloney. Increasingly, and with Press TV, we have difficulties in RT. I don't know how to describe this, but we're being asked to take a close look at them. We have some management questions at Press TV and how they're doing, and Jim Dean can maybe explain this, but we're not finding them performing as they need to, and Jim tries to get along with them. I'm a little tougher on them than that. But we didn't realize that Press TV is being run by someone that doesn't speak any English at all, and it's an English-speaking network. The guy's second language is German. So we'd like to have more people out there that we can deal with and share ideas with, and they're not there. Within VT, we can't bring everybody into VT, and I would do it if I could, but I can't bring everybody in. We don't charge money, we don't collect money, so I can't run the New York Times, and yet we run a lot more material than they do, a lot more valuable material. We have listener supported radio, and I think I'd like to recommend that people support you guys, but we can't take money right now. We're in a position like this. it's hard to ask people for money and stay honest. It's like, if everybody from VT ran to Iran every couple of months, and some of our people do this, pretty soon you're careful about what you tell the Iranians. And I want the ability to tell them to go stick it to themselves when they're wrong. I want to keep that. I'm not always after the Israelis. I have friends there, and sometimes some of the stuff they do makes sense. When Netanyahu's marching down the streets of Paris as the monster I know him to be, Abbas is next to him as the monster I know him to be well. And the person who thinks he leads the Palestinian people, I know him to be part of the problem. So anybody that's a leader anywhere, you don't get to be a leader somewhere without, we'd like to think that maybe Mr. Putin may be something a cut above, But the jury's still out on that. The jury should always still be out. Always. That's the whole point. That's why we have a free press, so that the jury is out. And that's what we lost. We lost a press that would ever stand up and say no. They no longer do that. They don't stand up at all. Nobody does that. And almost everybody else is either idiotically amateur. I don't like being in this position where people want me to be president, because God only knows, I'm old enough. I don't have any time to screw around with these things. Don't have a sense of humor for it. I've seen too much suffering. I'm not going to allow it anymore. Simply, make me in charge. God help any of you. Don't support me if you don't trust me. If you don't trust me with your life, don't support me. And very much so. If you don't, because you will be trusting me with your life. Absolutely. That's the whole point about the presidency. If you don't trust me with your life, because I'll tell you, the president of the United States can cost you your life. And after the 2000 election, thousands and thousands of Americans and millions around the world died because, we didn't have a fair election, or they trusted a maniac with their lives. And we've got to stop doing that. Take a little more time in those decisions now. And I'm taking off, letting Jim Dean take over.
And Gordon, I thank you and appreciate all the work that you do. And don't stop. By the way, I posted up about a half an hour before the radio show about, let me have the title real quick. George Bush pedophile sex ring and blackmail of Congress. And it's really kind of old news, but I want to tie some of the different stories together. And while we've been doing this show, I've been super attacked, and the title is the same on my site, and it's not even on my site. You think Chutka people have gone nuts, or the Israelis, or Daddy Bush?
Yeah, and if you guys in Fort Huachuca, just to let you know that there will not be a military base in Sierra Vista, Arizona, one day later. I will send trucks down and bulldozers, and it will be bulldozed to the ground. And it's not the only one. If you think you can watch people, if you think you can listen to people, if you think that the military or the government, if you think there will still be a Department of Homeland Security 1 minute later, if you think anybody is going to use the word homeland, I'm going to have it ripped out of every dictionary. It's not going to exist. We're not doing that anymore. Homie ain't playing that one anymore. We're all done. Bye, guys. Hey, good night. Have a good evening, guys.
Thank you, Gordon, very much. Have a good one. And Jim Dean, how are you this evening, sir?
Good. Off to a busy week. Both a very busy weekend. Gordon and I were at it for hours on Saturday and on Sunday when we went back and revisited the ballistics on the Paris cop shooting video that had gone around so much. Did he cover that? I want to make sure I don't repeat anything that he did. But
about Paris, yes, and he covered Paris in the 911 stories that you have up. And
Yep. Those were it was a busy weekend, and probably I can't remember where we had put articles up where we were going back hour after hour due to just conversations we had had and whatever, and adding things, improving videos. I can't think of any time where we went back 4, 5, 6 times, and they kept getting better, you know. So because we really were trying, we knew this is critical material, and we had to do everything we could to try to get an impact with it, because with the blackout that we have with corporate media, we're completely reliant on the listeners to market our stories, really.
Well, let me
And
on
they have
Facebook Truth Warriors. We have over 200,000 that passed around this week. They passed 200,000 times our stories. So that's fabulous. I love our Truth Warriors. Truth Warriors.
Well,
Facebook.
great job there, and I'm just mystified as to how they've been able to do it. But it's an example about how when we have specialty people that aren't involved in all the other stuff, they can take an aspect of this that we don't have time to do, and they're building a whole different promotional avenue, because that's one of the things that they spotted is we didn't have time to spend hours and hours a day, building new promotional avenues. So they saw that, and they felt they had the skills to help and do that, and we're hoping that's going to be the model to make BT bigger, is folks that do have those specialty skills and they have the time. They come in and we can kind of subcontract projects out to them, and they've been a sterling example. So let me start the news. My favorite story of the day, I will call this baby roast, because he is in the doghouse worldwide like he has never been. And I'm not sure he's going to be able to wash this off, because it's a big news about how he crashed the Paris morning parade after asked not to come because poor Hollande correctly thought that having a leader of probably one of the most famous state terrorist country in the world, particularly who's murdered more Muslims and Muslim children as ever than basically any man currently alive, showing up at a morning ceremony for terrorism might be a little bit, as Sunday used the term, divisive. So, but in true fashion, and to show that Likud supremacism is still alive and well, Bibi crashed the party. But in his defense, he did find out that Avigdorf's political rivals, the Likud party is having their elections. Lieberman and Naftali Bennett were announcing that they were going to be attending. And of course, as ministers, they're a little less profile. So right away, Bibi said, "Oh God, I'm going to get scooped. The elections are this now. This is a party election now. This is not elections for prime minister or anything like that." So he wasn't going to be left out. So he basically told the French that he was coming. And I mean, that's that's just so unclassy. But again, no surprise whatsoever with the Israelis anyway, and with Bibi, certainly. So here's poor Hollande now. He's having to scroll around. So he invites a boss, if he's going to come, the leader of the Jews, and he's going to figure, I got to bring the leader of the Palestinians in. So he got in there for balance. But so Bibi crashes the party, but it gets better. While they're marching in the parade, Bibi had been given a spot in the second row. And guess what he does, Stu?
No idea. What did he do?
He doesn't be in the second row, because what does that do to your photo opportunities?
Yeah, you got to be up front.
Got to be up front. So what would Bibi do that no one else would dare to do?
There's no telling with this guy. I mean,
He elbowed his number one. He elbowed his way up to the front because he knew he wouldn't be TV cameras wouldn't get him. He wouldn't be in the photos and whatever. So he actually elbows his way up the front again. A diplomatic blunder like on steroids. But we're not done yet. Here's everybody marching in a somber parade, and guess what he starts doing? He starts waving to the crowd like he's at a campaign rally and smiling. Hey, fuck, Bibi Netanyahu, I'm here. You can say you saw me. You know, and everybody was just absolutely aghast that here he was treating the event like, this is going to polish up his world leader status for his Likud, not the election, the general elections for the Israelis, but for a party election. And then
James says he's criminally insane.
Yeah, I mean, people just put their head down.
I call him Bibi Netanyahu.
But then, of course, it got worse. And then he got, and this is how these hardcore Hebrew clan folks operate. He felt he had dissed, okay? Of course, dissing Holiday, embarrassing him in front of his country, all the other world leaders, dissing the French people, that doesn't bother him at all because he's like, well, you all have to understand what your position is. There's us and then there's you. So to kind of stick it to the French for like putting him through all he had to be there, he then turns the event into a immigration recruiting thing by using stump bodies of these victims to basically claim that the Jews want to be safe. They can come to Palestine because they've been having in all the news talking about the French. Everybody left out the statistics that a lot of people in Israel are leaving. So one of the currents here is an Israeli leader is trying to show he has the ability to attract new people, particularly people who have some money that they can bring to Israel.
It's called want to be a Jew in Israel because they're not Jews in Israel. The Hebrew tribes in Palestine. It's the Palestinians, and you've written about that.
So we're going to have to start having those DNA checks. If anybody can get down. We'll start out with Bibi's. So that was everybody was aghast when he made it, and actually even the Jews in France were aghast by that. But this is typically what you find with these people, particularly with the political class. Only the worst of the worst somehow end up, rising up in politics because they're just better. They're more devious. They're better pathological liars. They're able to smile and whatever, and elbow all the honest people just out of the way. But so now we go later in the day. They go to the big Paris synagogue because now the four Jews were the parade for everybody. Okay, and of course Bibi got up to his front of the line, so he got what he needed out of that. Now the four Jews that were unfortunately just murdered in the delicatessen, they had to have a special ceremony for them. A little bit of a little separation going on there. So Hollande, out of respect, did go in there, but guess what he did when it was time for Bibi to speak?
What?
He gets up and leaves, Stu. Hooray, Hollande, it was a beautiful move. They just give him the fast word to just walk out on him. So he saved a little bit of French pride there. But so I'm thinking we may have a call campaign that we might be able to do a couple things. Just pour on the Israeli embassy that we never want to see Bibi here again, or any Israeli like this, and then also maybe put some calls into the White House that we would like Bibi basically declared a persona non grata, that he can talk to him on the phone, whatever, but we would consider it a courtesy to the American people that he never set foot in America again, because personally I think the guy is something that one would scrape off their shoe after a day of working in the Chicago stockyards. So that's Mr. B. And then the last footnote on that, and this is really hilarious, Erdogan figured that there was blood in the water. His staff probably told him that Netanyahu was really going to take a publicity hit on this thing. So he decides to bash Bibi also for attending when he's the leader of the biggest terrorist killer of Palestinians on the planet. And I said, these people are absolutely out of their mind. I mean, here you got somebody like Erdogan having the gall to say something like that, when it is widely known now that he's been supporting the Free Syrian Army terrorists, and he's been supporting ISIL and those folks. He bought their oil that they've been pumping out, even the oil stolen from Iraq. All the looting, as Gordon's talked about, the car plants, all the businesses, the factories where the equipment, they send a big convoy of empty trucks over and they load everything up and off it goes to Turkey, where it miraculously disappears and crosses over. So here you have Mr. Terrorist supporter slamming Beatty for being a terrorist supporter. So we also need to get some calls into the Turkish embassy and that let them know that we're not that stupid, and we just think the behavior of these people was absolutely reprehensible, and we don't want their state leaders to come here if they can't find better people. Now, sure, diplomats, they have to talk to them. Foreign ministers can come here, but we don't want people like this to set foot in our country. And we'll do a little working on this, because we were talking about using the truth warriors, one weapon that we don't have. If we can build this thing up into the hundreds of thousands, and we could build this into a phone call campaign group where we could have 1 or 2 projects a week where we could show what some public reaction is, that would be a very useful thing over the next couple of years on being able to visit some things and also help us break through the corporate media blackout. I think if we could have some campaigns where we can put 100,000 phone calls into an Israeli embassy or the White House and Congress on some things week after week, it's going to be hard. The news is going to get out that that's going on, and they're going to say, where is this all originating from? And it will get back to us. So that I'm going to probably write a story on that, something along the time of Hypocrisy on Steroids. That was the first working title. How people will use, and heaven knows, some of these Jewish folks will use a pile of dead people if they can exploit it any way to be the victims or profit from it somehow. It's just ungodly what some of these political people will do, because they are completely amoral and they have no compass whatsoever. They're supposed to have staffs that are supposed to grab them by the belt and put some chloroform on them and knock them out when they start doing something that's just so stupid. But obviously the chloroform guy must not have been there that day.
You have to define them too as what they are. They are not Jewish people. They are not the Hebrews. 8 out of 10 of them living in Israel today. They are not like the Hebrews, which 8 out of 10 of them are living in Palestine, are the Palestinians. So we've got to define that for the listening audience. These are the Ziles. This is organized crime at its max.
Good. I'm going to wrap up with a couple of quickies because we've got just a few minutes left. Ukraine, the ceasefire's breaking down. The Republic's report that Kiev had 51 ceasefire violations last night over 24 hours. Kiev's accusing them of 18 attacks. So for some reason, Kiev just decided to crank up the shooting. Most of it was shelling. Then the other little footnote there, Poroshenko today, he must be snorting crack. He decided that he was having withdrawal from not having enough headlines. So he grabbed the microphone and declared that the whole Ukraine conflict was going to be settled in 2 weeks. And of course, everybody just made a collect, huh? So they think he's lost his mind. So how people could ever accomplish anything positive is just beyond me, because they just seem like lunatics. Russian sanctions, the EU foreign ministers meeting is going to meet in Brussels on the 19th. And Russian sanctions, what they're going to do about Russian sanctions. So I'm thinking that they really don't want to wait all the way to March when they're going to end. I'm thinking so that they can get the business climate positive. They maybe want to make an announcement if they can early that they are not going to be renewed then, so that they can stopping some of the damage. And that, folks, is solely due to grassroots political blowback in Europe. But it's unions. This is what we don't have here in America. Over there, they have some of their structural groups. Individuals are doing a lot, political groups, but the unions, you're having doctor strikes, train strikes and whatever. Everybody's pitching in to basically let them know they're unhappy. And then lastly, a little note on the oil. It's broken, even the Brent crude, the English crude below 50. And people are saying they're basically thinking that maybe not this week, but we're possibly going to go down and hit $45 a barrel oil. Which is going to be the death knell for shale oil. All the small operators have been working on debt. They're probably going to go under. No new projects will be started, so you're going to start seeing it. It'll take a while for the production to decline. And if this goes on for a year, it'll have some effects in terms of the industry getting hurt, but it sure isn't going to hurt the pocketbooks that now everybody has all that money that they're not having to spend on gas is available to spend on something else.
Well, this is what the big boys did, the Council of 12, the Illuminati. They did the same thing back in 1972 when we had the oil embargo. And they could go to whatever price they wanted. It was $28 to $30 a barrel coming out of Saudi Arabia through the Aramco they formed, Daddy Bush and his ownership in it, the American Arabian Oil Company. And of course, all the drillers here, they were capped at $10 a barrel, if you remember that, Jim. And it broke all of them up. And they got absorbed by Texaco, who was the main one that was loaning them the money. The bankers, Texaco boys, and to do their drilling. And, of course, they couldn't meet their payments because they were capped under federal law at $10 a barrel. I'm seeing the same thing going on, except they don't have to cap it. All they have to do is just drive them into the ground. That's what they're doing. Along with they think that they're going to drive Russia, of course, its economy into the ground, and Iran and Syria. So, are you still there?
Yep, sure am. But yep, they're we're going to see. It's going to have the banksters. They do not like stable markets because they make all their money in the big swings, particularly when they know which way it's going to go, because they're basically doing their psyops, everything from wars and political operations and market manipulations. It's really market organizing is something that our security people have failed us absolutely miserably on. Part of it is just cowardice because they do kill people for very, very large amounts of money. And none of these folks want to leave government when they retire and have a nice, cozy life getting paid huge sums. A lot of these people. Eric Holder's now going to be the poster child for how much you can get if you really sell out. An astronomical annual figure that he's getting. And this is why people go in. We get these type of people drawn to go into government. I mean, criminals want their kids to go to Ivy League schools and get them into the business, and they want to get them into politics because they see, it's money, you've got immunity, it's the greatest thing in the world. So we have a political structure now that it's just grabbing. Then you have the bottom feeders. They just want to stay close to power and to be part of the game. They won't ever do anything to rock the boat. So they're kind of compromised also. So they can be the little congressmen where people think that they're getting some representation, but they're like a capo in a crime syndicate. Not on purpose, but that's what they end up functionally being. And so they get their little scraps from the table.
And they can have sex with kids and be protected.
Oh, yeah, and do that. Nobody else can. And then you can go home on the weekend and pretend none of that ever happened. But have you got Preston James on?
We do have Duff. Are you there?
I'm here. It was a very good report by Jim Dean. But I have a question for you, Jim.
Yeah.
A lot of people are very nervous about all the shenanigans going on in the Ukraine and, various American money that's drifted in there, $5 billion to start with, and then all kinds of mercenary forces coming in. And it's like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. On the one hand, we have, we have down in Iraq, we have ISIS, which is started by McCain and these traitor generals. We have our CIA with the private mercenary armies down there, and then the regular part of our military is bombing them, and occasionally, they on purpose drop supplies to ISIS, where those supplies are supposed to go to the Syrian regulars. A lot of people are worried about how, could this escalate in the Ukraine at the same time that it escalates in Iraq? Could this lead to some kind of war with Russia? I mean, how much is Russia going to put up? Will Russia allow the Ukraine to move in and take Crimea again? How far can this go?
Well, Ukraine can't take Crimea, so that's a dead issue. And there's not going to be any war because nobody can afford it, and nobody wants to take the risk of being humiliated by losing. The Navy doesn't want to lose any ships. They got humiliated when that Russian jamming plane with no weapons flew back and forth over them and basically shut down all of their weapons systems. And they were an absolute sitting duck. So that was some reverberations there. Gave the Navy a little comeuppance because the Navy, Air Force, a lot of these military wings, they sometimes get very, very bravado. They're really looking for a fight because they want to use their weapons. They want to show the country that, we were worth the budget. And I find a lot of them, really not much thinking about what the consequences of what if you start something and it gets out of hand. I know you love to, when you feel you have an outgunned opponent, you love to go out and do battle when the odds you think are 100 to 1. But what happens if you miscalculate and a lot of civilians that don't want any part of this end up getting killed and suffering just so, you could have your little military head trip buzz, particularly when it's not a situation that happens to happen. When you're looking for it to happen, you want it to happen just so you can find out, what it feels like to shoot your gun. So it's all about money. They don't want war. They basically want to muscle people. They want to win an economic war. They want Putin not to be beaten in a war. They want him to be beaten politically. They want American puppets that are dependent on that can bring American loans in there, and everybody can get rich, and a new criminal class, and then they can run their currency up and have inflation and then default on their loans and do the typical IMF trip where they come in there and they get control, which they failed to get control of when the oligarchs got taken down. And of course, Putin's the guy who did that. So this is a little payback for him. But the Russians are way ahead of them, and then the Chinese are also. So they're playing a cool customer here, and I still think that Ukraine could end up being one hell of a tar baby for the EU and the U.S.
Well, Jim, there's stories that Putin is very political astute, and that he is helping the Ukraine people, shipping food into them, humanitarian things, and that he's really winning their hearts and minds. If that is true, where is that going to go eventually?
Well, they like it because of his food, but they've got that when not a lot of others are. But there's another group of them who are very unhappy because they're kind of naive. They just think the Russian military should just come in there and start bombing the Kiev's artillery positions and shoot their air force down, and so that they can live in peace and hopefully bring a bunch of money in there and defend them. But of course, what they're not seeing is that a bigger war in Ukraine could make their situation worse. And there's no simple thing. And Russia doesn't want to allow to give a situation for NATO to have even a bigger presence, which if they were to do something like that's what would happen. So you have people that are not politically sophisticated, people that are suffering, their own town, their only livelihood has them totally focused. And it's normal for them to want somebody to come in and save them. And of course, Russia has done, I would say they have supported them, but they had to be very, very careful. They've had a lot of money. They've had a lot of Ukrainians that were veterans working in Russia that went back as volunteers to fight, which certainly they have a right to do. And there's nobody can claim that that's Russians going back there to fight, because there are a lot of people in East Ukraine that have served in the military. Particularly, we're going to go back and protect their homes. So but we're seeing some signs where people want to get this wrapped, and also they see the sanctions. We need to get the Ukraine thing wrapped up. So, because once that's done, even Halinde says the mistrial ships can be released. That's the only reason they're holding those, is that the Ukraine thing gets settled, and nobody's realized, they don't see what they're going to get out of Ukraine, that they're now taking all of this heat, all the political unrest, all the economic stability, which is not affecting the U.S. And there's more that people realize that they got suckered into this by the U.S. and corrupt elements of their own political class that somehow were sucked into this and told they were going to be given a piece of the pie of whatever they were going to exploit over Ukraine. And of course, a lot of the Europeans know that that's coming out of their pocket. So people are getting a little savvy that a lot of these folks that are in the leadership positions, they are there not to serve the country, but because it's the most efficient way to steal money and have diplomatic protection.
But Jim, is the Ukraine an Israeli satellite now? Is it functioning that way?
No, they don't have. They have influence, but they're not like running the show because they're not putting any money in. The U.S. and EU are basically without them. Ukraine's nothing. The Ukraine, the government that's there, are puppets, and of course the Israelis are there because they have the contractor stuff that's all in, and they're the oligarchs. Of course, have they always are very friendly with Israeli intelligence. That's a two-way street, and Israeli intelligence is always very friendly to people that are of big assistance with them. So sure, they're there, but and they're looking to make money any way that they can, and of course they're as good of exploiters as anyone else. So they're just going to be one of the wolves trying to feed and tear a chunk off of. And then eventually, if this thing all came crashing and all of these U.S. puppets, they're going to end up they'll come to New York City and with all their stolen money and want to live here as refugees and lifestyles which most of us will never live at, and be welcome guests of U.S. governments, like holding a big mafia convention. So the humiliation never stops. So I suggest to everybody to let everybody who's humiliating us, they should get some humiliation in return, because we have to find some disincentives for them to do this. We got to hurt their reputation, boo them in public whenever you can, or else there's going to be no reason for them to stop doing it. They're going to do it to you. They're going to do it to your children. They're going to do it to your grandchildren. They're going to be reducing us basically to an indentured servitude. As Gordon, we were talking about this a couple years ago, and he says it's a debt servitude. That's basically where they're going. People think they've got something, but they really don't. What they owe on it, they think they have pensions coming. They may and they may not. Somebody decides they want to loot those. They can't afford to pay them. Everything you think you're going to get is a maybe. And any of those big pension funds, no one ever would have thought the pension funds were going to be looted like they were. But people looked at those growing sums of money. They saw that only a few people had control over those, and they spent years trying to work ways how they could get in there and take advantage and get those funds, because they knew a lot of people put the money there and forgot about it. And then they started thinking of other ways they could do it. So we have internet crime going on in this country at a huge level, and our law enforcement people have failed us miserably on the mega white collar crime. One of the problems being is that they didn't have the death penalty, but I think it was Stu that corrected me one day and said there actually is a death penalty for major financial crimes.
Economic plunder is actually the law. It falls under economic plunder, Jim.
Yep. And boy, it takes a village. I said, because I had never heard of that one. So live and learn. But I'm going to bow out and let Preston have the last part of the show, and I will catch you guys later in the week.
Okay. Thank you, Jim Dean. It's always my pleasure to have you on, sir.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye now.
And Doc, boy, you've been hammering them lately, and they've been trying to hammer you back, haven't they?
Yep, that is true. There's a lot of interesting things going on, but as for years we've seen Lee want to sort of emerging from the from the shadows. That when his stories come out, hundreds of sock puppets and stooges went into action to completely disorient him and to try to discredit his story. They've tried very hard in many ways, and I will say largely in the past they've been real successful. And the reason is because, like you, Lee was wrongly imprisoned for something he never did, fake charges, tortured in prison, and they did all kinds of things to disorient him. But the American people really had no access to any of the information, the truth behind the situation, because Lee was a secret agent, and so many of his the supporting documents were purposely buried by Intel to keep his role secret. And that's one of the problems with high-level intelligence operatives and agents, and he was very high level, is the fact that it's very, very difficult to ever get any of that information, any of those documents. Fortunately, the United States of America is a huge bureaucracy with all kinds of different areas, and even in Intel, contrary to what most people think, they copy stuff. And I don't know if that's true today, but 10 years or more before now, everything was copied. Maybe it'd be 4, 5, 6, 7 copies going to obscure places, sitting in file cabinets that were forgotten about, nobody would know about. So if they sent up a burn operation to bring all the documents in and destroy them and try to eradicate evidence and various things, it would usually protect all the main documents from the public getting them right away. But over a period of time, over years and years, a lot of times these secondary file cabinets get opened and these documents come out. Well, what's happened is most of the documents related to Lee Wanta's work have been recovered. I've seen a lot of them, and when I saw them, I started realizing this guy is really an amazing individual. He's not exaggerating. He really did acquire this vast $27.5 trillion fortune. And now over the last few years, we have enough documents to prove beyond any question at all that Lee Wanta, he's told the truth on everything. What he did honestly. He didn't commit any crimes to do it. He's an absolute genius. People think, well, how could anyone honestly earn that much money? You'd have to know Lee and how his mind works. He's operating at an IQ level over 200. If he probably can't even be tested. But he's the way he can crunch figures and dealing with mega economic thing. He's explained a lot of it to me, and it's over my head. I looked at what he's done, but the guy is absolutely 1 in 100 or 200 million people this way.
Well, you're a guy, and you're a brilliant guy, and you yourself, you're a retired psychologist, and I mean, you've got a high IQ as well. But I mean, Leo's, it's hard for him to even explain things to people, isn't it?
Well, yeah, he's off the charts. I mean, we got some people at VT that are really intelligent people. Professor Fetzer, Mike Harris, their IQs are off the map. Gordon's is probably the highest of any of them. But Lee Wanta, when it comes to financial intelligence, the guy, he's incredible. He's absolutely over the top. I've never seen anything like it, the way he can figure things out. And of course, as he was a genius as a child. He was so outstanding in school that attention was drawn to him right away, and it worked all the way up to a top senator, and who happened to be in Lee's state of Wisconsin. That he was so incredibly intelligent that came to the attention of the senator, and the senator, Lee had a speech impediment. He stuttered, and the senator arranged for him to go to an Optimist Club, learn how to speak, and then brought him into government service. He went into government service at 15 years old, and he was, functioning as like a 50-year-old educated adult at 15 years old mentally. The guy is absolutely incredible, and he had an illustrious career in undercover work and law enforcement, and high-level intelligence work. I can't tell what I know about Lee. I hope I can someday. It's all good. It's all incredible. And Gordon Duff knows everything about Lee. Maybe he can talk someday too. But what Lee, the first most important thing to understand about Lee is he's an absolute 100% American. He doesn't care what political party you're from or anything else. If you're an American and you want to save this country and you want to restore the Constitution and you're out for the average American, then you're on his team. That's it. He doesn't care about parties or anything else. He loves America. He always has, and that's what he's been working for, and he wants to restore it. And he has a very, very workable plan to revitalize and reindustrialize America. But what's really strange, and I just recently put an article up called Thwarted Attempt to Hijack Wanta. What's really interesting now is, and this has been a real tough thing for a lot of the people in government that have been denying Wanta and saying, oh, it's all a lie. There is no Lee Wanta. He's a fraud, or if he does exist, or there's no money. No, it's all been proven. The money a couple of weeks ago was transferred to a bank in Reno. It's more money than what Lee thought because interest has accrued. Now he's waiting for an invitation to be brought into the bank. He cannot just walk in there. It's at a Wells Fargo bank. And now we also have the smoking gun proof of the voicemail message that was left on his Washington, D.C. embassy phone, where these two self-described puppet masters called up former governor of Tennessee and another former state senator from South Dakota, called him up, tried to shake him down for $30 billion. We have that on tape. It's on Veterans Today. It's been in a number of articles there. So this is smoking gun stuff, and complaints have been signed against them. Nothing so far has nothing been done. This probably has a lot to do with why Eric Holder resigned. This particular case alone could bring down the whole Republican Party. This one phone call could bring down the whole Republican Party if it was properly prosecuted. It's smoking gun stuff. So now we know that people can no longer say Lee Wanta doesn't exist. You can no longer say his fortune is not real. Oh, yes, it's real. We have all the proof. I've seen all the documents. The documents are there. And so now what's happened, it's a very strange situation because all at once, the very same people that were saying he's a crock, there is no money or anything, now they're trying to get the money. They're saying, yeah, it's all real, and they're trying to get it. So they have a complete 180-degree turn. So we've had usurpers, imposters, people that worked for Lee in the past that he fired come forth, and we even had one guy that was his vice president of his parent corporation that he started, that he fired, that he felt was usurping authority at that time. That guy's come back and claimed that he's the one that developed the Wanta plan, and he deserves to get the money. And he actually, Lee Wanta has shared that this man went to the Queen of England and tried to negotiate a special deal. And it's just, to me, it's quite hilarious that all these years, all these people working so hard to prove that Lee Wanta didn't exist and that there was no money. Now, within a matter of a few days, they've made a complete turnaround, and now they want the money. It's just so. It just goes to show you, Stu, how these people can turn on a dime if there's a buck involved. And it's like Jim Dean says, you just can't make this stuff up.
They're shakedown artists. I mean, I've seen every troll in the world come out of the woodwork. You put up a story, another story. Besides the one on Wanta, you put up, you've just been cranking them out one after another. You put up a story, is any story evil enough? And what happens? Every troll in the world, didn't they come out? Oh, Stu Webb's a phony. Stu Webb's a phony. Yeah, right.
You're right, Stu.
All the FBI trolls on Mark Hoslow of the FBI. Let's see, the cross-dressers. Those are the ones that dress up, folks, in dresses and go to the red light district in Denver. Those are the ones that live in trailers underneath the ground. Those are the paranoid ones that the FBI hired, that most of them couldn't pass a psychological or psychiatric testing because they're criminally insane. So the FBI puts them on as trolls.
That's right, Stu. So anyway, we have this situation where now all at once, Lee Wanta is the real deal. Yes, his money's real. Yes, he earned it honestly. It's in his name. Yes, everything he said is true. Yes, he's one of the greatest American heroes we ever had. Yes, yes, yes. Now what? These people are in a complete tizzy. They're scared to death he's going to actually walk into the bank and get access to his money. By the way, I have his budget in front of me that was worked out with Congress back in 2008. I have it here. All the different line items, and
read it real quick.
Well, I can't. I don't.
One of the
I don't have permission to read it.
Clean up the corruption, is
right? But I can tell you a couple lines here. I don't have permission to read everything, but there's one line item where there was $100 billion, which will be spent the minute Wanta gets access to his money, to set up task forces to go after organized crime and to eradicate organized crime in America. And you can imagine what that means. That means an end to all this political corruption. Now, this is not a joke. This is serious money. Or like the railroad. I don't have exactly the total cost to be spent on the railroad, but trillions of dollars to build this high-speed railroad. Now here you got the governor of California, Jerry Brown, builds this. He's going to build this railroad now there. That's a joke. It's a joke. It doesn't solve the problem. It's not state-of-the-art. Lee Wanta's design is state-of-the-art. It's advanced. There'll be nothing like it in the world. And it'll put the United States back on the map. And he's going to get rid of all he's going to work to get rid of the free trade and get regular trade. So,
sounds like we are out of time. Dr. Preston James. Everybody can find his articles, veteranstoday.com/author/Jim. Remember, this station is